Have you ever noticed that some relationships start to feel more like obligations than blessings? If you're in your 70s or beyond, you've likely spent decades caring for others, raising children, supporting a spouse, managing a household. And now you might be wondering what life would feel like if you just had a little more peace, a little more room to breathe, a little more time for you. This video is not about loneliness. It's not about giving up on companionship. It's about something deeper. It's about the surprising truth that for many people over 70, being single can actually lead to more freedom, better health, and greater happiness than staying in a strained or emotionally unbalanced relationship. You'll soon discover 7 reasons why being single after 70 may not only be okay, but better than you ever imagined. Whether you're divorced, widowed, or simply choosing to live solo, this video is for you. You're about to learn how this stage of life can become a time of expansion instead of contraction, of emotional clarity, regained energy, and quiet joy. Stick with me through the end because what you hear today might help. You understand your life in a way you've never seen before. Now let's get started. Reason 1. Emotional exhaustion from long-term compromise. By the time you reach your 70s, many people have spent 40 or 50 years accommodating another person's habits, moods, needs, and decisions. And even in a healthy relationship, that kind of long-term compromise can wear you down. It's not about blaming anyone. It's about recognizing that the emotional energy you once had for constant negotiation or people-pleasing might be running low. The things you used to overlook, like a raised voice, a dismissive comment, or always giving up your preferences now feel heavier, more draining. After 70, many people no longer have the emotional cushion they once had to absorb those daily frictions. And when you're no longer in a relationship, especially one that required constant adjustment, that daily tension disappears too. There's a lightness in being able to choose what you eat, when you sleep, what you watch, and how you live without always having to consider someone else's preferences. This isn't about selfishness. It's about psychological recovery. Take someone like Ruth, 74. She spent 52 years married,
Bize
always
nakaroon ng
managing around her
madami
husband's
putik
strong
ko.
opinions. After he passed, she found herself making her own decisions for the first time in decades. And she said, "I never realized how much I gave up until I stopped giving it." That quiet liberation of not having to bend every day is something many single seniors describe not with sadness, but with relief. It's not a sign of bitterness. It's a sign that you finally recognize your own boundaries and emotional bandwidth. After 70, that kind of clarity becomes a lifeline. And when you start prioritizing your peace over your people-pleasing, something shifts inside. Your nervous system calms. You sleep better. You even smile more without knowing why. Sometimes it's because you're finally living on your own terms. And at this age, that might be the best gift you can give yourself. Reason 2, daily friction becomes more irritating than comforting. As we age, something interesting happens. We become more sensitive to tension, even in small doses. What might have felt like playful, bickering in your 40s can feel like sandpaper in your 70s. The everyday quirks that once added color to your relationship, how they loaded the dishwasher wrong, or their habit of falling asleep during your favorite movie, now grate against you in ways that feel personal, not playful. And here's why as you get older, your threshold for stress shrinks. Your nervous system doesn't recover from emotional jolts the way it used to. You crave peace, not noise, simplicity, not constant adjustments. Even a tone of voice or a long sigh across the room can start to feel like pressure on your chest. It's not that the person changed dramatically, it's that your body, your mind, and your emotional reserves change. And sometimes the smallest interactions begin to feel like a power struggle you didn't sign up for. That's why being alone for many people after 70 doesn't feel lonely. It feels safe. Frank, who's 76, shared that after his divorce at 68, he was shocked by how quiet his house became. But over time, that quiet became soothing. "I used to think I needed someone to talk to all day," he said, "but it turns out I needed someone not to argue with all day." He's not alone in that realization. Studies show that older adults report higher satisfaction with solitude compared to younger people. Why? Because they've lived through noise, conflict, caretaking, and chaos. And they've come to realize that silence isn't empty. It's full of recovery. So when you find yourself walking on eggshells around your spouse, more than you're walking with joy beside them, that's not a sign of failure. It might be a signal from your spirit. I'm tired of negotiating peace. I just want to live in it. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Reason 3, care burdens tip the emotional scale. By the time you reach your 70s, chances are one of you isn't as strong as you used to be, physically, emotionally, or both. That's the natural course of aging. But what's often unspoken is how caregiving, even in its gentlest form, slowly rearranges the dynamic between two people. What once felt like a partnership can start to feel like a responsibility. And responsibilities, when they're uneven, can quietly build resentment. Take Martha and Bill. They've been married 49 years. When Bill's memory started slipping, Martha stepped in. Out of love, of course. She organized the meds, repeated the appointments, handled the paperwork. But 6 months in, she found herself sighing before every task. Not because she didn't love him, but because she missed being just his wife, not his nurse, scheduler, and safety net. That subtle shift when your spouse becomes someone you manage instead of someone you lean on can create emotional fatigue. And unlike in younger years, there's less energy to recover from that fatigue. You start to think, when do I get a break? And when the answer keeps being never, a hidden bitterness creeps in. Sometimes the resentment isn't even about the person, it's about the helplessness. You see their decline, and you're not just watching them suffer. You're watching your own freedom fade with it. You feel guilt for resenting it, but your body doesn't lie. You're exhausted, and every time you get up to do one more thing, you're quietly grieving the version of your life you no longer have. This doesn't mean love disappears. It means the weight of roles, expectations, and exhaustion has clouded the joy that once brought you together. And that's when being single, without the layers of guilt or caretaking pressure, can start to look like relief, even if it's tinged with sadness. It's also why some older adults choose separation, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. Because sometimes love doesn't mean holding on harder. Sometimes it means stepping back and saying, I still care, but I need to breathe again. Reason 4, the erosion of curiosity and shared novelty. One of the things that keeps relationships alive at any age is curiosity, not just about each other, but about life, new places, new hobbies. But after 70, especially in long term, marriages that shared sense of wonder can start to dry up. You wake up, sit in the same chairs, talk about the same aches, eat the same meals, and before you know it, the days blur. Not because either person is bad or dull, but because neither of you is introducing anything new to the mix. And over time, the stillness that once felt comfortable begins to feel stale. The truth is, curiosity is energy. It's engagement. It's the spark that says, let's go try this, or did you read that? And without it, even small conversations can feel like chores. You ask, what do you want for dinner? And get the same old answer. You suggest going out and here, maybe next week. The silence between you isn't filled with ease anymore. It's filled with disinterest. Many older adults don't even realize it's happening. They think, this is just what marriage looks like now. But that resignation is what slowly builds internal tension because one of you might still crave adventure or surprise, while the other has quietly accepted monotony. And that mismatch can lead to resentment, not just toward the partner, but toward the version of yourself you've become. You start thinking, when did I stop growing? Or worse, why am I shrinking to match their pace? Betty, 74, put it this way, I still wanted to learn Italian. My husband just wanted to rewatch the same TV shows. I realized we weren't curious about the same things anymore. And that made me feel alone, even though I wasn't technically alone. This is why many people after 70 feel freer once they're single. It's not about disliking their spouse. It's about rediscovering the ability to say yes to life again, to wake up and feel like the world is still opening, not closing. And for some, when that quiet, freedom becomes more fulfilling than a stagnant companionship. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Reason 5, unspoken emotional debts. As couples age, it's not uncommon for old emotional wounds to remain unhealed, not because either person is cruel, but because life moves on and we often choose peace over confrontation. But here's the problem. What we don't talk about doesn't disappear. It just sinks deeper. Maybe your spouse dismissed your career years ago. Maybe you supported their family more than they supported yours. Maybe you quietly bore the weight of caregiving, sacrifices, or even betrayals thinking, it's fine. That was long ago. But the truth is those emotional debts, those silent you owe me's, don't vanish with time. They just harden. After 70, with more time to reflect and fewer distractions, these debts often resurface and they can quietly fuel resentment. You start noticing how one-sided the relationship feels, how the appreciation never came, how apologies were never really made. And even if everything on the outside looks calm, on the inside, you might be keeping score. Resentment in older couples often isn't loud, it's slow, a quiet pulling away, a reluctance to engage, a growing emotional distance masked by politeness. You might still cook for them, still go on walks, still say goodnight. But deep down, something's no longer soft between you. The kindness feels mechanical, the love functional. Psychologists call this emotional bookkeeping. Over the decades, you build a ledger of every disappointment, and by 70, that ledger can feel full. Without release, without open conversation or mutual acknowledgement, those entries can turn even small interactions sour. Harold, 78, said, I spent 35 years putting her needs first. I didn't complain, but now when I see her act like I owe her more, something inside me just clenches. I realize I've been swallowing my feelings for decades, and I'm tired of it. This is why resentment in later years can surprise even the most stable couples. Because what was suppressed in the name of harmony begins to demand recognition in the silence of retirement. And unless it's addressed, it poisons the remaining time together, not with shouting, but with sadness. Reason 6, shift in identity and purpose. When we're younger, much of our identity is shaped by what we do. Our jobs, our roles as parents, providers, problem solvers. But after 70, those outer layers begin to fall away. Retirement, children moving out, and health changes can leave us staring at a quieter version of life. One that forces us to ask, who am I now? This question hits men and women differently. Some rediscover hobbies, friendships, or spiritual pursuits. Others feel lost like they're passengers in someone else's life. And when you're living with someone who's adjusting at a different pace or in a different direction, it creates friction. Maybe you found peace in gardening and simple routines, but your spouse is restless, irritated, wanting to travel, buy things, or chase distractions. Or the opposite, maybe you're the one trying to reinvent your purpose while they've settled into watching the same shows and routines day after day. What happens next is subtle. You begin to judge each other, not necessarily out loud, but through sighs, silences, and a growing sense that you just don't get each other anymore. You wonder how you lived with this person for decades and yet feel emotionally distant now. You eat meals together, but there's less warmth. You sit beside them, but your minds are in different places. This is what psychologists call identity drift. It's not about falling out of love. It's about two people becoming different versions of themselves at different speeds and failing to recognize each other in the process. And here's where resentment creeps in. You start to feel misunderstood. You're trying to grow, to adapt, to make sense of this new stage in life, and your partner either doesn't notice or doesn't care. Eleanor, 74, shared, after my retirement, I started painting again. It brought me joy I hadn't felt in years, but every time I showed my husband a new piece, he barely looked up. That's when I realized I wasn't looking for praise. I was looking for him to see me again, but he couldn't or wouldn't. It's not always intentional. Sometimes your spouse is facing their own quiet struggle, and neither of you know how to talk about it. But over time, This emotional disconnection feels like neglect, and resentment fills the space where empathy used to be. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Reason 7, lack of appreciation for invisible efforts. By the time you're in your 70s or 80s, there's a long list of things you do for each other that no one notices anymore. Maybe you quietly refill the pillbox each week, or you make sure the thermostat is set just right. Or maybe you're the one remembering birthdays, refilling prescriptions, or gently nudging them to eat a little more, rest a little longer, or walk a little further. These aren't grand gestures. They're quiet, repeated acts of care. And here's the tough part. Over time, they become expected rather than appreciated. And when something becomes expected, it often goes unnoticed. You may not even realize how much this wears on you until one day you're standing at the kitchen sink or putting away their laundry and you feel it, a sting. That small voice in your head that says, "Would they even notice if I stopped?" This is the emotional fatigue that builds when love is no longer acknowledged, when caregiving feels like a duty rather than a shared bond. And when you bring it up, you might hear, "Well, I didn't ask you to do all that." And that cuts deep because you didn't do it to be thanked. You did it out of love. But even love over time needs oxygen. Resentment doesn't always come from big betrayals. Often it grows out of these tiny omissions, the unspoken gratitude, the unseen effort, the missing thank you. You begin to feel more like staff than spouse. And in your quiet moments, you wonder, when did I become invisible? Harold 81 shared, "My wife used to thank me every time I fixed something around the house. Now it's like, I'm just supposed to. One day I stopped fixing things altogether. I just wanted to see if she'd even notice." And that's the danger. When appreciation fades, love turns into labor. And labor without thanks, it always leaves a bruise. Final thoughts. Schöne Rundreise und gute Fahrt. What begins as love in our younger years often becomes routine in our older ones. And if we're not careful, that routine hardens into resentment, not from malice, but from years of quiet disappointments, unmet emotional needs, and feelings left unsaid. If you've seen even a glimpse of your story in what we've shared today, you're not alone. These feelings don't mean the love is gone. They mean something inside you still wants to be seen, heard, and cared for. And that's the beauty of aging. Yes, it brings new challenges, but it also brings clarity. You start recognizing what no longer works, and you gain the courage to speak it. Whether you've been married for 50 years or living under the same roof with growing distance, it's never too late to shift the energy in your relationship. Small acknowledgments, honest conversations, letting go of old roles and stepping into new ones together. That's how healing begins, even at 70, even at 80. If you've ever felt like your partner just doesn't get you anymore, maybe it's time to gently help them see the parts of you that have changed too. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.